Hey everybody, welcome to this issue of Staffing Monthly, where we are scouring the globe, bringing in experts from all over the world, literally, as you're about to see, to answer the most pressing question in staffing right now. And that is, how do we get more and better candidates into our pipeline so we can fill orders faster and better serve our clients? And here with me today, I have somebody who I've only recently just met. Our paths have crossed, and I am glad that he's in my network. But this is actually Rich, who's the Chief Revenue Officer at ApplyFlow, which I just personally love that title. And ApplyFlow is doing something different, and they only focus on websites in the staffing space. And I hesitate to say website because they do it differently. I feel like it's maybe underselling what they really do. And when I actually had a chance to dig deep twice into the way they create sites and how it integrates everything, to me, it really felt like they turned the entire model that we're used to in the States kind of on its head. But Rich is from Australia. So Rich, maybe that's just the right way up down there. Is that right? Is that what's going on? So welcome to the call,
Yeah.
man. I'm glad to have you here.
No, thanks, Dan. Thanks for having me. It's it's a pleasure to be here, and thanks a lot for having me. So yeah, it is. It's funny. Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, have we flipped it on its head or flipped it down under? It's an interesting way to put it. But I suppose the way that we look at the entire landscape of recruitment globally, fundamentally that's changed. And I think your question that we're all trying to answer, and everyone around the world's trying to answer at the moment. How do we get more candidates? How do we attract better quality candidates? It's like it's that $1 million question, right? That everyone globally is kind of scratching their head and trying to figure out the answer. And I know you're scouring the globe for experts on this subject matter, and I think there's going to be a lot of different takes on it, but.
And that's the point. That's the point. I want to bring a holistic perspective to this so the viewers of Staffing Monthly can get a feel from all these different angles and pull these 2 or 3 actionable insights out of it to really make a difference in their agencies and what they're building.
Yeah, definitely. No, and it's a great initiative, and it's a topic that I think needs a lot of airtime. And that's like at ApplyFlow, our mission, I suppose, as a company, is just to make recruitment better for everyone. And that encapsulates a lot, like the recruiter, your clients, your candidates. And I think collectively, right, and this is why I'm quite excited to have this conversation today, because I think, collectively, everyone that works in this industry globally, if we can kind of band together to achieve that, I think it's going to make the industry better for everybody. So that's kind of where we're at. Yeah,
I agree, man, and I got to say, I don't want this to come across as offensive, but I believe that you've probably seen this too. I feel like every staffing website that I've seen has been the responsibility of somebody in marketing or branding, and they make them look great and they have good copy, but I feel like maybe that's the approach that they've taken, and they haven't really focused too much on building the website through the recruitment lens, right? And thinking about how do we actually use the recruiter mindset, or, as my friend Rishabh from Aviante says, how do we walk in the shoes of talent as we build out our processes and the tools and technology? And you guys have done that fantastically. So let me ask the big question here. Here's the crescendo, right? It's like, from your perspective, working in this space, how can agencies find better and more candidates for their pipeline using what you do?
Okay. All right. So my take on this is, how do I say this? It's like, let's look at it this way, right? Let's kind of unpack that a little bit. And I hate talking about it, but let's address the elephant in the room, right? The pandemic, COVID-19, right? So this left an enduring mark on the recruitment landscape globally, right? Years of change really happened in weeks. Working in an office shifted to working from home, interviews face to face, and meetings, rarely done via the webcam is now an industry staple, right? And really immediacy, convenience, speed. These are the top demands from candidates. This is the new normal that we're living in. And in fact, I was reading something earlier, but in fact, earlier this year, according to the Bureaus of Labor Statistics, right? So, the labor force participation rate, so the share of Americans, right? And, this was an American statistic. Share of Americans that are either working or looking for work has been slow to recover, right? And it's remaining stagnant since June 2020. Right? That's a huge number, right? So that entire cohort has basically not changed, right? So what we really, I think the real question that we kind of need to peel the onion skin back a little bit is, what do recruiters and recruitment agencies need to be really asking themselves is, so the world's changed, right? The landscape in which we used to operate within has changed. Candidate needs and behaviors have changed. But as a recruitment agency, have you changed the way that you attract talent?
Not fast enough.
That's the question. Not fast enough. And in some cases, not at all. And in actual fact, most cases, not at all. It's just, you look at the commercial job boards out there, right? Indeed, LinkedIn, Monster. In Australia, you got Seek. The list goes on, ZipRecruiter, right? These guys, all these commercial job boards are reporting huge increase in job vacancy numbers, right? Which is great for them because everyone's lining their pockets, right? We're all publishing these ads on these commercial job boards and lining the pockets of these, these companies, which is great, but we're not getting any return on that investment. We're not attracting quality candidates, and in a lot of cases, we're probably not getting the candidate volume number that we did, pre-pandemic, right? That's
true.
Kind of what we're hearing a lot of.
And when you think about that just for a second, they're in the best spot, right? Like if you're in a job board and I'm an agency, and if I'm dumping a bunch of money on your job board to get candidates, and all of a sudden that spigot just starts to slow down and I need more candidates, I'm just going to throw more money at you. So It's almost like I'm paying for the hope of getting candidates, and that's really how they make their money. And now, if you're an agency, your clients don't reciprocate that. They don't follow suit. They're not going to be saying, hey, you know what? I'm going to throw even more money at you to help fill these orders. It's just, so they're in the right industry. And I like where you're going with this, but I wanted to point that out for our viewers to see that kind of that dichotomy there.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. It's a vicious cycle, right? And I think, when you start to you sit back, and as we do, right? And that's what we really have to do at Apply Flavor. We sit back and we look at what's happening globally. What are the global trends? How do we solve the problems for recruiters globally, right? And when you kind of think about it in the way that we're kind of talking about it now, is if the job market from a candidate's perspective is slowed down, right? It's stagnant. People are kind of holding tight. We know that candidates have basically left jobs and, they've gone and done a side hustle during the pandemic, and they're trying to make that work. Now, all these things, these contributing factors are happening, right? But let's just take it back a second and say, well, okay, we know that there is a stagnant job market, right? We know that there's people out there, but it's slowed down. So when things slow down, people generally take their time to find the right position for them, to find that right next step in their career. Now, the challenge I've got, and what kind of makes me a bit perplexed, is as a recruiter or as a recruitment agency, how are you going to convey that? How are you going to stand out using solely commercial job boards, right? You look at it, you go to Indeed, there's millions of job ads. And it is so hard. It's impossible to differentiate one from the next to the next to the next. And sure, you can pay extra money and have your ad stand, and appear at the top of the search results. Or you can add your logo. That's a great idea because you can pay more money to the job board to add your logo and make it look pretty, right? And that's great, right, for the job board because they get more money. But is it actually yielding you that return you're expecting to get? Are you getting better quality candidates, or are you getting more candidates because you've got your logo up here? Because really, that's the only way you can differentiate your ad from another one, right? And then on top of that, you think about, the ramifications of that, right? Okay, so I'm a candidate. I go to a job board, right? It doesn't matter where it is, a commercial job board, right? Third-party commercial job board. And I applied for a job, and I've applied for the job. I'm feeling pretty good about it. And then what do these commercial job boards do? They go, hey, candidate, you've just applied for this job. Here's 50 other jobs. They're really similar. Why don't you have a look at those and apply for those too? But they're not your jobs. So there's no loyalty either, right? Those corporations are in the business of serving their content, right, to their web visitors, the candidates that are on those job boards looking for it. So for me, that's where I have this big problem, right? Because I don't see it solving anything, really. And that's kind of the root of the problem for me. And ultimately, as a recruitment agency, we can establish that the world in which we live in right now is totally different to what it was pre-pandemic. So ultimately, if you're not pivoting, if you're not catering to the modern needs of candidates that are out there today, and prospective clients as well, right? It's similar. You're going to be losing to the competition. That's period, right?
And I want to dig into two things that you just said there that are really important. That you're right. The whole business model that Indeed did was they basically offered to post people's jobs, whether it's Monster, Career Builder, whoever, and just backfill the jobs. And hey, we're going to give you extra exposure, traction. And they did all of that. And every job board out there was ecstatic. They're like, this is great. This is amazing. They didn't realize that Indeed was just basically stealing the traffic, right? They were just taking the traffic to make it their own. So then they would have the inventory or the interest that they could turn around and sell at a premium back to, hiring employers and staffing agencies. And, to the point where when Google came out last year, within the last 2 years, and they're like, hey, we're going to kind of do the same thing. And Indeed was like, no, we're good, Google. We don't need your traffic. And if you think about any company in the world that can tell Google they don't need their traffic, that means what they did was kind of the right thing for their business. But here's the trick. Yeah. It's not the first time it was done. Before Indeed, it was Career Builder. Before Career Builder was something else. And it's always going to be something else. And the thing you said about agencies, the ones that are slow to pivot get left behind. But there's also a reactive nature to just always pivoting to the whims of the job boards and what they're doing and how they want to change their business model, to where if you just let your database be essentially the candidate traction on a job board, you're going to be impacted negatively at some point. So you really got to own the database. You've really got to bring that traffic back to yourself to insulate you from those future, changes that the job board industry might encounter, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think, you've hit the nail on the head, so to speak. And I apologize. I don't know if that's a common phrase, but we've got some really strange phrases down in Australia and puns that we like to use.
That's apropos in America. We're good, my friend.
There you go. Great. So you're right. When we're talking these commercial job boards for the last 2 years, it's a pure traffic play, right? And that's what it comes down to, right? And you've got to sit back and you go, are they actually genuinely wanting to fill positions? Are they wanting to, really serve your ad and get that filled and have an abundance of candidates apply for it, right? You've got to ask that question, right? Because I don't know if that's what they're really trying to achieve here, right? I think it's a massive traffic play, which coincidentally is also the way that you actually can solve this problem, right? And that's where, what we do at ApplyFlow, that's kind of like our secret sauce, right? Secret 7 herbs and spices, so to speak.
There's no secrets here, so you're going to have to share now. You can't.
I'm going to share everything. No, exactly. I'm here to share everything. So basically, what you want to understand is, how do we attract talent? How do we acquire good quality candidates, right? From where we sit, from our perspective, it all comes down to your recruitment website, right? It is it's your number one, and it should be, right? So it must be, right? You must be your number one performing digital asset, period, right? It must be the center of all your marketing activity, right? And by doing so, you enable your organization, your agency, to be less reliant on other third-party commercial job boards, right? Now, when you think about that for a second, and let's just unpack that. How do we make that happen? Like, what's a byproduct of doing that? Let's say I invest money, and it is an investment, right? And it should be. And let's say you invest into your recruitment website to make it the center of your marketing activity, to make it your number one highest performing digital asset. What are we going to get back from that? Well, I'll tell you what you're going to get back from that. We know that the job market's slowed down. We know that candidates are spending more time researching, more time looking for the perfect next step in their career. Now, if you're just an ad on another job board, you're going to get lost in the sea of millions, right? By setting up your website with your own job board, that's what we specialize in, right? We've got our proprietary technology is the best job board technology globally. It's used by some of the world's biggest, like Adecco, parts of Randstad, list goes on, right? But I'm not here to speak who we kind of are and what we do. But when it becomes the center of your marketing activity and you're acquiring candidates and bringing them back to your website, into your digital ecosystem, right? And you can do that even if you leverage, even if you have to and feel the need to leverage commercial job boards, right? Have link out. So instead of applying on that commercial job board, you can have link out so it links back to the job ad on your job board on your website, right? Now that's pretty powerful. By doing so, your job ad's not getting lost in a sea of millions. It's on your own job board. They're in your website. So that candidate then all of a sudden gets to read the content on your website. They become immersed in what you guys do as a recruitment agency, what you specialize in. Now, can you imagine the difference of quality in candidate from, and let's say we're talking a software engineer, right? Software engineer role. And it's on Indeed or LinkedIn or whatever, and I'm reading a job ad and it's just another software engineer role at a company. And I'm like, okay.
Could have any logo on it.
Anything, right? It could be anything. It's just another job ad. We flip that on its head, right? And let's just go back. I'll apply for that job, right? You've got my application, right? And I'm going to go to the next job ad for a software engineer. I'm going to apply for that one too, and another one. Flip it on its head for a second. You get that same candidate and you bring them back into your digital ecosystem. And as a recruitment agency, all we specialize in is tech. We get it. We get tech. We get tech people. We understand software engineers. All the content, all the social proof, right? Companies that you may have worked with, candidates you placed in certain companies are all, tech companies. All of a sudden, that candidate is then going to become, that content's going to resonate intimately with me as a candidate. And all of a sudden, I'm going to be saying, my mindset's changing, go, wow, this recruitment agency just specialize in my field. They get me. They get my needs. They get what I want. They get the industry. They're working with companies that I actually want to work for, right? So then all of a sudden I look at that role and then I dig a bit deeper and wow, they've got other roles that are probably even better suited to me within, the landscape in which I work. So then instantaneously, you are now getting higher quality candidates who have bought in to what you specialize in.
Okay.
And that can't be achieved anywhere else.
So I'm gonna push back a little bit on this one because on the surface, having your own career portal on your website and being able to link job traffic back to your website and having good copy and your branding on your website, that's not novel. There's a lot of staffing specialty website companies out there that do that. They provide that.
Yeah.
There's just website development companies that do that as well. So how do you improve upon that? Because that's out there. Like if that's kind of like if an agency only relies on job boards, like they're really the same as any other agency. So how do you improve upon that? Like that can be had, but how do we evolve that ability of having the career portal to really better position the agency? I want to tee this up because this is the way I see it. You're right. I think the website needs to be the center of the ecosystem, the best performing digital asset you have, because it's the one you have the ownership of and the control over. But really the power of the website is findability, right? And sure, job ad traffic can send people back to it, but it has to be found. Like that's where it starts. So talk to me about how, because you guys do something different. I don't know if you're just waiting for the big reveal for the secret sauce here, like you did to me the other day, but like talk more about something like how the website should be, more findable and helping the agency get found, and how it's integrated with that, as well as some of the other systems, right? Because that's key.
Yeah, definitely.
The journey.
Yeah, it is key for the journey. So like it's specifically at ApplyFlow, what we do is we specialize in the most seamless candidate application experience on the market, right? So you can apply for a job within clicks. And then we've got our proprietary job board, right? Now that proprietary job board, and there's quite a lot to kind of go through here, so I'm going to give you the bigger pieces. The proprietary job board that we build and put on all of the recruitment websites that we've built out over the years is configured to Google's job scammer, Google for Jobs. They have their own individual URL, and all of the jobs are automatically optimized for SEO, right? So why is it important?
Why is it important that they have their own URL when it comes to the SERP for Google?
Great question. So why is that important is because when you think about modern day candidates, right, they don't go to LinkedIn or Indeed or ZipRecruiter and type in a job search anymore. You don't have to. You go to Google, you type in the exact same search that you're going to type in any one of those commercial job boards. And within roughly about 0.51 seconds, you've got over 1 million results. And you've got all the results for every single commercial job board there anyway on one page. So it's just click and then you go into that, right? Now, if your job ad has and contains the keywords that candidate was using in that search, and you're using an ApplyFlow website, that job ad that's sitting on your own job board will come up in the search results. I can click on that. It's going to take me directly back to your website, to that specific job ad, where I can then read that job ad, but then I'm also going to be immersed into the content and then into your site, into your services, and into your offerings, right? So that's one of the biggest things with what we do with our job board, right? Then there's a whole realm of other things that we do. SEO is a big thing, right? Now, the larger portion of recruitment agencies out there, and I think it was something you said earlier at the conversation, is that, I think it was, if I, recollect, it was, you think that someone in marketing generally does these websites and they make them look pretty and whatnot, but they might not function well. Well, yeah, there's a percentage of that for sure within the industry globally, but it's not the largest percentage. We've actually found that the largest percentage of recruitment websites out there predate 10 years ago, right? And they were either done by really, predate 10 years on average, right? It's a huge industry. And what you've got to understand is it's actually quite an archaic industry, the recruitment industry. It's an industry.
We are a bit laggard when it comes to technology adoption.
Well, what's the word I'm looking for? It's a strange one, because yes, it's an archaic industry. Yes, the industry as a whole is slower than a lot of other industries to pick up technology, but it's also an industry that goes, hey, tech's the new thing. Like I saw it with AI, right, in the industry. And so the industry goes, oh, it's latest and greatest. Throw everything we've got at it. Let's do it. We want this. I want to use Bullhorn. I want to use, ZipRecruiter. I want to use all these different moving pieces, right? So then all of a sudden we've got this big spaghetti mess of a tech stack at the average recruitment firm. That's another conversation, right? For another day. That's a whole different problem. Right?
So you bring up something that's interesting about that. I almost wonder if maybe if the age of the website really is 10 years plus, maybe for a big segment of the industry, I wonder if maybe it was sort of set it and forget it. Like they treated it like a checkbox, but because it really wasn't doing much for them, and because they turned their attention to job boards, if maybe it just wasn't getting the attention it deserved to keep up. So maybe the the lack of dynamic nature of a website or the lack of results of performance and helping support the recruiting process, if that's just why it didn't get the attention. Maybe that's fueling it.
I think it's a little bit more than that. It's not that there was a lack of results. It was never built or structured to produce results. That's kind of what it is. Because, you know, getting back to, we're an archaic industry. It's one of those industries that has this stigma. The way that we've always done it's always worked. Right? That's something like, yeah, correct. For me, yes, right? It's insane. Especially now, right? Post-pandemic, and people still say, well, you know, I did this 10 years ago and it's always worked for me. The world's changed, right? It's totally different. So how can something that worked for you 10 years ago work for you today? How can something that worked for you 2 years ago, post-pandemic, work for you today? We know it doesn't, right? So we've kind of got to, it's one of those, hey, let's pull my head out of the sand moments and kind of have a good hard look in the mirror and go, what am I really doing here? Because a lot of these recruitment websites that, you know, 10 years, whatever, that haven't been touched, you look at them and I speak to these recruitment business owners all around the world every day. And I'm like, you know, what were your goals here? What are your goals? What is the goal for this? What are you trying to achieve? And a lot of them, believe it or not, and this is just such an, and I use that word again, archaic response, is, well, I needed a website to show that I'm legitimate. I'm like, you know, I'm like perplexed at that comment. You know, it's 2020, it's 2022, right? You know, this should be, and I said it earlier, it's got to be your number one performing digital asset, right? I'm like, what's the point? Why have it?
So now I want to dig into one thing you said, and then I want to ask a question to move into a different direction of something I've seen you do that I liked. So going back to the Google findability and all of the individual URLs, how much do you do or are you aware of like having a Google Pixel and actually using those individual URLs to be able to do like remarketing with Google Ads? So if someone takes a look at a job and maybe they don't apply or they don't do something, maybe you could still feed them ads, you know, around Google or even maybe in Facebook if you have a Pixel, because it has that unique URL, right? Like you've now got that ability to do what Amazon has been doing for years and really any e-commerce person has been doing for years, right? Like that's a benefit of having
100%, right? And it's kind of, and I'll answer that, but I just kind of want to expand on it because you said Amazon and Google, whatnot. But what we actually did, right? And we looked at when we you know were going through Apply Flow, building it, and wanting to make a difference. We sat there and we go, well, let's look at the most successful online, you know, businesses, websites globally, right? Shopify, great example, right? The way that you go to Shopify, the way that they structure websites, take the user, and in our case, we relate this back to recruitment, takes the candidate or prospective client on a journey, right? From top to bottom, right? Takes them on a journey that engages them at every stage throughout the website that leads to an acquisition, right? It's either going to lead to a successful candidate application or it's going to lead to a successful client acquisition, right? Through the conversion funnels that we build out, right? So then on the backside of all of that, yes, we will integrate and we will build out, set up Google Analytics, right? Or an analytics stack of your choice, whether it be Mixpanel or Hotjar, right? From there, we can start tracking the source of where your visitors are coming from, right? Your web visitors are coming from. We can track them from web visitor through to prospect, through to client, right? And we know where they are at the journey that they're on through the website, right? So if someone has come to the website and they've engaged, but they haven't transacted, they haven't applied for a job, or they haven't inquired about your services, well then, yeah, we're capturing that data, right? And through the tools that we offer at ApplyFlow, allow you to then remarket and retarget back to those people, enticing them to come back into the conversion funnel optimal. You know, it's kind of what we do.
And that's big time, because one of the biggest ways that any agency can improve or increase the quantity of candidates is to reduce pipeline leakage, right? If you lose candidates throughout the process, you're not going to have them in place. So if you can actually have those automated tools like you were just talking about to bring them back into the fold and kind of improve process yield, as I say in my process world. So I think that's huge. Now, I know you're a global leader with, two of the major ATSs with Bullhorn. You've got, bi-directional data sync, same thing with Job Adder. And this is really important because this is one of the unique values that I saw different about Apply Flow is how you integrate with some of these ATSs, where if someone applies and they're in your candidate portal, that data is getting mapped over to Bullhorn. And if something updates over there, it gets updated on a profile. So your candidate portal on the website piece of it actually can refresh and say, hey, these people are more active because they've made changes or they've updated their resume. And that makes it more dynamic than most candidate portals out there. And that was different that I saw, that I thought was fascinating.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. And that was just another one of the problems that we wanted to solve. So through the R&D process, way back when we started Apply Flow, we were like, let's look at the root problems that the recruitment industry faces. Now, this was post-pandemic, right? So that revealed a whole other set of problems. But one of the biggest problems was, recruitment agencies globally have, this really cool candidate database, right? They've got a database of, in some cases 20,000, in some cases, 500,000 plus,
right?
Depending on the size of the recruitment agency. And when you dig a little bit deeper and you start asking questions, as we did, we're like, how much of that database do you kind of use and, turn over into new roles? And they're like, well, not much.
Sadly, like very little.
Sub 5%. That's insane. We're like, well, why? We're like, we just don't have the tools to use it. It's a very manual process. It sits in my ATS, and that functionality is probably not the best it could be. And you know what? As a recruiter, it's not my agency. It's not my money. I'll just post another job ad on LinkedIn or a commercial job board for X amount of dollars, and I'll acquire maybe 50, 75 new applicants, and I'll just use that as the pool to fill that role for my client.
Yeah.
Mind blowing. So we then sat there and said, okay, that is a real problem, right? Because everyone in the industry, of late, and for a while, it's like, data, all this candidate data. We want all this data. Well, it's great. You get all this data. What do you actually do with it? Have you actually got tools? What do you do with it, right? So, it's like the, what do you call it? What was that line in one of the movies? What's she doing over there? And it was like, it's kind of an in-joke we have in the company. So what are they doing with that over there all the time? Yeah. But, we sat there and we're going, okay, we're going to solve this problem, right? So then within Apply Flow, you've got your candidate database sitting there, all right, as well as in your ATS, right? Because you've got your recruiters sitting in your ATS, managing job requisitions, managing the application flow for the applications that come in, shortlisting, etc. But if you want your website, and it should be the center of your marketing activity, right? We've got this candidate database that sits in the back end. It's all your data. It's not ours. Basically, that allows the candidates to update their profile at any given time, right? So they can update their work preferences, their CV, their, they can create job alerts. They can manage applications that they've applied for on your website, on your job board. All of these different, data points, right, can be managed. So we said, okay, that's cool. We've captured all this data. This is fantastic. It's all happening, but it's sitting in Apply Flow. We've got to get it going back to the ATSs. Right now, when someone applies for a job on your job board with an Apply Flow website, yes, that application flows directly back to your applicant tracking system via the APIs that we've built. So you get the application sitting within where it needs to be, right? So that's called tick. But then we've got all this other data that we're capturing from the candidates, really enriched data that we're capturing. And the complexity that we had is, whilst we've got it all, the recruiters and the agencies are sitting in this ATS, right? So we've got to figure out how do we do that. So that's when we did the bi-directional sync, right? And the first one we did was with Bullhorn. So anything that happens in Bullhorn on a candidate level will update the candidate profile that sits within your Apply Flow website. And if the candidate updates, because they won't update Bullhorn, obviously, but if the candidate goes in, logs into the candidate portal on your website, and they update their information, that information is then going to flow back to Bullhorn and update the candidate record in Bullhorn 2, right?
And I gotta call something out about this, because I've had conversations about this with staffing professionals over the last couple of years, talking about they're reluctant to think there's a lot of value in having the ability for candidates to log in and have kind of a profile that sits within the agency, right? Because they're like, our candidates aren't going to log in and they're not going to update their resume with us, or they're not going to, and historically that's been true, but not for the reason they think. It's not because they don't want to, it's because the process or even the candidate portal is not user friendly. Like the experience isn't pleasurable, but those same people have no issue logging into Career Builder and updating their resume, logging into LinkedIn and updating their profile, logging into Indeed, and logging all these different places. If they're a job seeker, they're going to go do that. So if you create that great experience, and ATSs, they don't have that ability. Like the candidate can't log in to your Bullhorn and update it doesn't exist, right? Maybe to a plugin or a widget or a marketplace partner, maybe, but having that part of the website where it's a nice place where they can go in and actually manage a profile, I think almost would reinforce the concept of building a stronger tribe, right? You're getting a stronger, more 100%. Deployable audience that you can send out to your clients, and also highlight to your clients. And if you've got a strong audience, you're going to be more desirable and more valuable to the clients you're prospecting. So they're more likely to actually do business with you and maybe even pay a little bit more because you're premium.
Exactly right. Yeah, no, exactly right. No, you're spot on, Dan. So, and there's, it's literally about ease, right? I think I spoke about it earlier in our call, right? If you look at the industry we're in now, right, or the landscape we're in now and candidates today, it's all about immediacy, convenience, and speed.
Yeah.
Right. And that's kind of where we come in as well, right? Because everything we do is so seamless, so easy to use. Like you saw it yourself the other day. You can go in there and you can update all of these personal details, which then flows back to where it needs to go into the respective ATS that you guys may or may not use, right? So it's all about making life easier for everyone, right? And getting back to what we stand for, making recruitment better for everyone. This actually makes the life easier for recruiters within the recruitment agency, because some of the other tech that we offer within the candidate database within your apply flow system has matching technology. Right, so it will then match candidates that are in your database to the job that you've just posted on your own job board. Right,
so that's
go, hey,
that's fairly unique. That's fairly unique as well. That's really taking a page right out of the. I think Career Builder was one of the first to do that, where they say, hey, you've got 30 candidates, but then there's like these other 350 that match, and you can just click on a tab and see those people and start looking at the matches, because they're so. Bringing that technology off that catapulted a job board to the upper echelon and using that to the agency level was smart. That's a great benefit.
It was genius, right? And that's really cool because, as a recruiter, everything's about speed, right? Everything's about speed at the moment. You've got to fill jobs quickly. Good quality candidates aren't hanging around for long if they're on the open market, right? Not the ones that we spoke about where it's been sitting stagnant, right? If I'm a candidate, I'm actively looking for a job right now, I'm a rare commodity. So I'm going to get snapped up really quickly if my credentials all, meet where they've got to go. So as a recruiter, speed's the key. So if you publish a job on your new job board using ApplyFlow, and then you go in the back end and you click on that job that sits within the back end of the system, and you've got 0 candidates that have applied for it new, but through our technology, it will go through your database, your candidate database, and say, hey, out of a potential 10,000 candidates, there's 213 that match the job that you're trying to fill right now. And that's based on a number of data points, skills, taxonomies, etc. Right? And don't kind of need to go into a lot of it.
Keyword matching, the same kind of concepts that all job boards and Google use. We get it.
Correct, right? Past work history, all these type of things. We parse all the CVs and whatnot, and we take all that unstructured data from a parsing technology, right? And we structure it, right? And then that turns it into, keyword skills, taxonomies that become searchable, right? It can be matched. But then we take it one step further and we go, not only have we matched that cohort of 213 candidates for that job right now, but out of that 213, here's 20 that were active in the last 24 hours. Here's 50 that were active in the last 7 days, and the balance were active in the last 30 days. So you know out of that total number,
Who to call
who's
first?
really actively correct, right? You start with the ones at 7 days and you go bang. Hey, you just updated your profile, updated your CV, updated your work experience. You may have gone and done a course, a short course to upskill yourself as an individual, and you've updated that in your profile. We can see that. That's pretty cool. We think you'd be really suited to this role.
It's smart. And again, it's not a brand new, the job boards have been doing that to differentiate themselves to the agencies that we've been paying money for. And now you've got that same functionality rate in your website, which is nice.
Exactly.
And one thing I want to touch on, because there's this and there's two other things I want to talk about that are a little bit out of the realm of recruitment, but I think it's worth noting because I'm a sales type guy. But one, I do like that your chatbot is native. I like that it's not just like a plugin, and that seemed pretty seamless to me. And the reason I bring this up as it relates to how do you get more and better candidates is you have to think about how do your people like to engage, and a lot of the generation that's being hired today are the same people that you can call on their cell phone and they won't answer, but they will text you right back. Hey, do you need something? Right? Yeah, those are the same type of people that might prefer to actually hit your chatbot up at 3 a.m. Maybe they're a night owl, I don't know, but they're going to go to the website, and if that's there, and so I like that fact of it. And then you have some tools that can actually kind of manage that conversation while your recruiter's sleeping or not around or whatever. But then you can also have them jump in, and it archives it, which is pretty neat.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So, the chatbot that we built, basically, there's two parts to it. You've got your chatbot, and then you've got Apply Talk, which is this other little, neat piece of tech that sits behind it, which is bulk SMSing, automated SMSing. So basically, with the chatbot, this ties back into, if your website's going to be your number one performing digital asset, right? It's going to be the center of your marketing activity. No one in your company's awake 24/7, right? No one. Let's be honest, right? But that investment, that website it's always on. It's always there. And if you can put tools in that actually curate and converse with people when they do come to your site 24/7, you're in front of you're winning, right? And that's what the chatbot does. And we can customize that chatbot from a branding perspective, so it actually looks, it's kind of like white labeled, right? So it will look exactly like your company's brand, right? So we'll brand it and we customize the messaging to suit your company, the way that you want it to operate, right? And basically the whole idea of that chatbot is to think about it like this. You break an arm, you go to hospital, first person you see is triage, right? They're going to assess, are you dying right now, or can you sit there for 3 hours with a busted arm until a doctor becomes available? So that's what this chatbot does. It triages the visitor, right? Your site visitor, and says, hey, what are you here for? It will establish whether they're a prospective candidate or they're a prospective client. We'll take them down a different journey, serve them different content based on who they are and what they're there to achieve, right? All of this is designed to lead to an outcome, to either a successful candidate application or a client acquisition, right? Contact us. That's what it does for you. Now, you can have that in either auto mode or manual mode, right? So auto mode, obviously, it's going to go through the motions that we set up, right? Or manual mode is between the hours of 9 to 5. You might have someone in your agency, in marketing or whatnot, that can actually toggle that off and can actually be a real person talking to site visitors as they come to your website and trying to curate them and steer them down the path that they want to ultimately achieve, right? So it's a win-win for everyone. The back end of all of that is, at the end of the day, the week, the month, however you want to structure it, is Apply Talk will capture their information and you can send out bulk SMSing at the end of the day, hypothetically, to every visitor that came to your website that engaged with that chatbot, provided their details. So be like, if you came to the website, you engaged with the chatbot, you left your details and you had your experience, we can then follow up as an agency with an SMS. Hey, Dan, thanks for coming to Apply Flow today. How was your experience? Did you achieve what you needed to achieve? We saw that you, currently looking for a job. Did you find out what you wanted? Or if it was a candidate, if it was a client, did you manage to get what you wanted? So you're capturing this information and then you're going back as a second or a third touch point to then curate that into a successful application or client acquisition.
And I think there's a very important distinction to be made right here, Rich, because there's going to be a lot of people that say, well, I already have bulk SMS hooked to my ATS. But what you just said, and here's the distinction, and pay attention if you're watching this right now, these are candidates that might not have made it to your ATS yet. And the 100%. Whole concept is about how do we get more and better candidates to fill our orders, right? There's a lot of people that go to your website. There's a lot of people that engage with you that right now are not making it into your ATS. And this is one native tool functionally that can help you re-engage those people and draw them in without a lot of additional recruiter time and effort. So that's the distinction. This is not the same type of SMS that you're using for people that are already in your database. This is helping you get more people in. And that's important. That's a key piece right there.
Yeah, it is. And it's essentially just to kind of sum that up nicely for you. And you did it really well, but it's basically that's designed to take someone from site visitor to prospect to customer.
Right.
And that's what it's there to do. Right. So yeah, there you go.
And that's just
cool.
one tool to answer that question. How do we get, more and better candidates? So there's two other things that I want to mention. I'm going to do this in order of how closely they relate to solving the question of getting more and better candidates. But one is, I know I've been around a lot of digital marketers and I know the SEO reports and whatnot. I was particularly pleased with how you show me, you analyze. That's fine. I thought it was cool. I will admit, I'm going to, again, push back here. That's not novel. Most website development companies will say, hey, I'm going to run an SEO tool because they use it as a sales thing. They say, hey, I'm going to show you how bad your website is so you know how much better I can make it, so you should do business with me. So when I first saw that, I'm just like, okay, all right, I've seen this before. But what you did, what you told me that was different, and I've not dealt with every website developer out there. That's my disclaimer. But what I felt was different is you have an account rep that actually does that every single month of your customer. And they're going to look for how to continually iterate and optimize to always improve viewability, findability, because that's going to help get more candidates in the pipeline. Right. So I just touch on that and why you do that every single month, because that's just almost reviewing what you're doing.
Yeah, definitely. So that was a big thing, a big shift that we wanted to introduce, because we sat there and you're right. There are a number of companies that specialize in recruitment websites globally. And then you've got your standard digital agencies that will make you a really pretty website as well. But what really left us quite perplexed and scratching our head is you spend all this money with these guys and they build you this website and they're like, there you go, it's all yours, go for it. And then you sit there and you go, oh, this really isn't, I don't know. I think it's, and we speak to these guys all the time. They're like, yeah, I think it's working. I think it's doing what it's meant to do. I'm like, what do you mean you think? You need to know, right? So we kind of, that's where we come in, right, with that aspect. And so, yes, we do provide a technical account manager to all of our clients. And basically what that means is they will run a website performance and SEO report on your website every month, right? And they'll use the previous month's report as a benchmark, and they'll have a one-on-one with you. And basically they will go through that report in quite detail, and we will uncover opportunities for growth to help you guys realize and achieve that return on your investment, right? So we'll sit there and leave you with tangible outcomes, right? These are things that you could go and do on your own really, really quickly in the back end of the content management system from, an SEO perspective, right? Whether it be optimizing your H1 headers or HTML tags or whatever it may be. These are things that are really, really easy to do. By the way, you get full onboarding, full training on how to use all of the stuff that we do. So you don't have to be too much of an expert. But, and that's where these technical account managers come in, because at the end of the day, we don't expect recruitment agencies to be the expert in this. That's what we're here to do. You guys are great at recruiting, right? Be great at recruiting.
Yeah,
let us be great. Yeah, correct, right? Let us be great at what we're great at, but together we're going to be a really strong combination. And that's kind of where we come in, right? We're kind of an extension of your team, but no one sees us, no one hears from us. We're just powering your number one digital asset. That's all. right? And we're making that work for you.
I like that. And again, I want to point out a distinction, because anyone that's ever bought a website, and this is not, I'm not trying to knock anybody. I'm kind of identifying how this has shifted, right? How you need to think different, be different in this different world, right? But anyone that's bought a website, I'm willing to bet in 95% of the website packages, there's an SEO bullet point. This is, you're going to get SEO. And there's probably even something to the fact that says, as long as you host with us, we're going to keep monitoring your SEO, right? But what people don't realize is if you want to continually improve with SEO, you have to stay on top of relevant trends. Keywords that were popular 5 years ago aren't going to rank as well now. So in order to really do, sometimes it's changing copy. So if you're working with a website partner that says, hey, we're going to keep an eye on your SEO, but if they're not going in and changing copy or giving recommendations to you to do it, or they're saying, hey, there's a blog that's performing really well, like let's think about how to accentuate that. Like if they're not looking at it all the time, your website will get left behind. And technology moves fast. Google's algorithm changes on a regular basis. It's like, so that's what stood out to me is like, hey, we're going to check this every month because things change, and that's going to,
Yeah, mate, you're so right. It's actually a little bit more than that, right? It's not just keywords and things like that. There's generally around 5 cohorts we look at, 5 variables, right? On-page SEO, right? You've then got the performance of the website, the usability, right? Which is a huge thing. Usability is massive, right? Is your website device agnostic? Meaning, does it render well on both mobile, tablet, as well as desktop, right? If it's just desktop, what's the point, right? There's data out there, so much of it. I think it was last time I looked at it, it was around 50, anywhere between 50 to 70% of applications globally are done on a mobile device.
They are. I think it passed 70% recently.
There you go, right? So is your website built for mobile? Is it built in the way that it's easy for candidates to apply on mobile? And people don't think about this, right? But the hit area to hit a button on a mobile phone, is it large enough, right, for someone to hit it? Or do you have to really kind of zoom in and,
It's true. But hit on this, Rich. So there's a difference between being mobile friendly, that means it will just render and resize a little bit, to actually like being mobile effective, right? Like there's a difference.
Yeah, 100%.
So explain that. So why is it different? Like, because everyone, again, this happened 5-8 years ago here, like, oh, it's mobile friendly, it has to be. And like, if you look and it just sort of scales everything down, but like, explain the difference between just being mobile able and mobile user friendly. Like, cover that in as succinctly as you can.
Yeah, basically, if it's mobile friendly, or, think about it like this. You've got this beautiful website on desktop and you've got your mouse with this pinpoint cursor that wherever you point it, clicks, it works, right? But then when everything gets shrunk down to a mobile phone, doesn't matter how big your mobile phone is, right? They're getting bigger. Again, funny how that works. But, you think about that, you've got to use this. This is it's not as accurate as a mouse cursor, right? So, the hit area on clicking buttons to either interact with your website need to be of a certain size in order for that experience to be as successful as you want it to be, right? So, it's a fine art to getting it right. People say, oh, your website's device agnostic, right? And, there's DIY website platforms out there like, Wix or Duda or Vendesta, right? They're great. They're great platforms, don't get me wrong. If you're wanting to build a website for a cafe down the road, right? Or a mum and dad business running some business out of their garage or whatnot. That's cool. Not for a recruitment business.
Yeah, it's a different animal. It's a different animal.
It's a different beast, right? It's a totally different beast. It's a sophisticated business, right? And ultimately, for the recruitment industry, you're in the business of people, right? And if your website doesn't generate the best experience for the people that you're trying to work with,
on to the next.
They're gone. Yeah. They're gone. And it's interesting, right? And I didn't know if we were going to kind of morph into it. And I was, I had a conversation with a guy about this a while ago, but, and I had statistics that we were looking at, right? And we've got these statistics in our business that we use and whatnot. But, you start thinking about the recruitment website and attracting talent, right? And attracting quality candidates. it really does come down to, I suppose, perception, right? Now, when you think about it, industry standard shows that when someone lands on your homepage, it takes about 50 milliseconds, that's 0.05 seconds, for a visitor to form an opinion about your website that will ultimately determine whether they like your site or not and whether they're going to stay or leave.
Wow.
Right? Now,
that's not much time.
It's really not much time, right? So there's a number of things that you've got to think about when taking that into consideration. I land on your website, the first thing I'm going to see is the hero, right? The top of your website. Does that intimately tell me who you are, what you specialize in, and why you're the best at it? Because if it does, and that resonates with me as a potential candidate, and you focus in, lack of an example, tech, and I'm a developer, and that content resonates with me intimately, guess what? I'm staying. And then if you're serving me, top of funnel activity that make my experience really easy to go, hey, yeah, I'm a candidate. I click that, I'm going there and I'm on a candidate journey and I'm in your top of funnel activity, well, I'm on the way, right? I'm on my way and you're on your way to landing a great quality candidate, right? So it can happen that quickly. Now, you think about that, flipping it to mobile, same thing again. I'm sitting on a train or a bus or I'm commuting or I'm on the lounge at home and I'm on my mobile and I look at it and it's really quick for me to leave or go, right?
Yeah.
Stay or leave, right? Really quick. So it's really important. It's really important. It's like, the age-old saying, don't judge a book by its cover. Well, unfortunately, recruitment websites are subject to an extreme level of snap judgment that really, immediately influence perceptions of credibility.
They are. And if you don't pay attention, if you're not thoughtful and intentional about what you're doing with this key piece of digital real estate that truly represents your company, you're going to run into the same exact problem that recruitment agencies do on job boards. Your ad is going to look just like everyone else's. If your website looks just like everyone else, you're going to lose talent. I mean, that's just the fact. So
Google said it. Google said 57% of internet users say they won't recommend a business with a poorly designed website.
I get it. I get it. It's true. I mean, it's going back to the person that said I needed a website for legitimacy. Legitimacy is a new bar now. It really is. So, but I know we're going long, and I'm loving this conversation. There's so much that hopefully the users can take out of this and understand how to reevaluate maybe their own website or optimize or whatever to integrate it better with their process. But there's something that you do I think is really cool. I think it's a little bit sales centric, but I actually have been thinking about how to pivot it into a recruiter centric function. And you guys do this thing called a reverse job board. I think it's slick. Yeah. Now, historically, the similar concept for recruiters, if you're watching this out there, has been the hot jobs, right? Or the hot candidates, the marketing, you're skill marketing a candidate, and you might say, hey, these candidates are great and people could look at them. But this just has a different look and feel. The way that you put the reverse job order on there, job board on there, it almost looks like someone's looking at job descriptions. So when a company that's hiring, if they know they're looking for a civil engineer or a project manager or a software developer or a machinist, like they know the job description that they're looking for because that's what they're starting with to hire that position, to recruit. So if they land on your website and they're seeing civil engineer and they're looking at it like a job description that resonates with what they're doing, yet it ties to a qualified candidate they can just request the resume for, that's slick from a sales function. We'll let you talk about this for a second. Here's my spin. This is why I think it will help also solve the problem of getting more and better candidates. If agencies are marketing their candidates this way, there's going to be this story that said, hey, I was able to get a job at this company. I was featured on their website and I was found by my current new employer. This method, you've got to work with this agency. And so that way it's going to increase that employer brand and drive more people back to you because you're building that positive sentiment in the marketplace. So just super quick, just kind of talk to me about the reverse job board and where that went into play for Apply Flow.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. And look, I'll be honest, you did a really good job of explaining it yourself. And that's kind of, just expanding on what you said is what we wanted to do, right? You look at the world of recruitment and they're advertising all these jobs for all their clients, right? But we're in the business of talent. talent. You've got all the talent in your database, right? If you then flip that on its head, and that's what we did, right? We created pseudo reverse job board where instead of advertising job vacancies, we're advertising available talent. All right. Now we're doing it blind, so it doesn't have their name, contact details, or any of that. It's got the key selling points, who they are, a little bit of the history, right, and their work experience. Then, as a prospective client, rather than just coming to your website and going, "Yeah, I want to engage in your services. I've got a job ad I need to be filled. I've got positions I need to be filled. Can you, do your usual thing?" Let's flip that for a second. Clients now come to your website, they look at your reverse job board and they go, "Yeah, I'm looking for a software engineer." And then you go and you peruse, you go and view the reverse job board, and you find that I'm advertising 4 or 5 or 2 or 1 software engineers. And I'm reading about that. Wow, this guy sounds perfect. So then I request resume, click request resume. You've got all my details, and you're placing that candidate with that client faster than ever before, right? And it's a win-win. You're placing the candidate, so you're fulfilling your obligations there, and you're also picking up more business with this new client, and you're charging for the service that you're offering. Right? The experience for everyone's just so superior.
And that's what I want to hit on, is because that's really, from a consumer standpoint, the people that are paying you for talent, your clients, they're human beings. All throughout the day, they're human beings. They go on Amazon, they like that experience. And right now, our consumer behavior has shifted to the point where they might not be willing to pick up the phone and call your agency and say, "Hey, I'm looking for a software engineer." They might not even be willing to email you, or even submit the contact us form that's standard place in all these websites. But if they see the goods, if they see the talent that they're looking for, if they can just go to your website, it's non-invasive, and they're like, "Oh, wow, they actually have the thing that I'm looking for," that's the carrot in a sense. That's going to be offering your clients, "Hey, I have what you're looking for." And maybe you don't, but if you do, they're more likely to say, "Yes, I want this," because now there's some hope that you actually can solve their problem. But if there's no belief that picking up that phone or sending an email or filling a contact us form, if there's no social proof that you can solve their problem, they're not motivated to do it anymore. Because it's one extra step. So that's why I thought it was slick. I can't go any deeper on it, because we're really at time here. People are like, they're like, "Man, this interview is going long," but you get, and Ozzy and me.
Yeah, you get into it, right? I could keep going. Yeah, we could keep going. But hey, listen, I appreciate the time we've spent together. It's been good. And as I said, I could keep going, because there's so much more I can talk about to help recruitment industries globally, right? So
it shows. I can tell you're doing it. And I think, again, for those listeners out here that are taking notes, be more thoughtful and intentional about how your website, walks in the shoes of talent, and how it optimizes that journey to better serve your recruiters and make their jobs easier. And that will get you more and better candidates. And so, Rich, for anyone out there that's like, "Hey, I want to learn a little bit more about this," or maybe just pick your brain to see some best, practices that I can do with my own website, or maybe see if ApplyFlow is a good fit. What is the best way for them to get a hold of you and talk further?
Yeah, definitely. So you can always contact myself and my team through our website, so www.applyflow.com, or you can reach out to me directly via email at richard@applyflow.com. Don't be a stranger. I'm here to help. Even if we don't, interact on a commercial level, more than happy to jump on a call and have a chat about what you guys are doing, and challenges that you faced. And as I said, we just want to make recruitment better for everyone. And if I can play a really small part in that, I'm winning. So that's it.
I love it, man. Rich, glad to have you here, man. I am grateful for your time, and I know that we are going to be crossing paths time and time again, and I love it, man. So thank you for being here.
Absolute pleasure. Cheers. Thanks for having me.